What's up, Crusaders? Welcome back to Coin Crusader, the channel where we cut through the noise and get straight to what actually matters in crypto. Today, we're digging into a story that has been quietly spreading through XRP circles. And if even part of it holds up, it could shape how you think about Ripple's road ahead. So grab a coffee, settle in, and let's get into it together. The story centers on a claim that has resurfaced online, originally posted some time ago, but now circulating again because of how it lines up with everything happening around Ripple right now. The person behind it goes by an alias rather than a public name, which already makes it something to treat carefully rather than as confirmed fact. Still, the details are specific enough that a lot of people in the XRP community are taking notice, and we think it's worth walking through calmly instead of reacting to the headline alone. According to this account, the individual describes themselves as someone with a background in London's banking sector and says they had direct exposure to conversations involving Ripple and the XRP Ledger years ago. The claim is that representatives from major banking institutions sat down to discuss the technology in detail, well before most retail investors were paying attention. Whether or not every detail checks out, the broader idea behind the story isn't far-fetched, because large financial institutions absolutely do study emerging technology that could affect their business model. The part of the claim that's getting the most attention is the suggestion that the conversation moved beyond simple analysis into something closer to a strategy session. The account describes a discussion about how regulatory pressure and public narrative could be used as tools if a technology like XRP's Ledger ever became disruptive enough to threaten existing financial infrastructure. That's a serious allegation, and it deserves a serious response rather than a panic reaction. So let's unpack what that would actually mean in practice. Here's the thing, Crusaders. This pattern isn't unique to Ripple or even to crypto as a whole. Anytime a new technology threatens to bypass slow, expensive, or outdated systems, the institutions built on those older systems tend to respond in predictable ways. Sometimes that means building competing products. Sometimes it means lobbying for new rules that slow the disruptor down just enough to let the incumbents catch up or adapt. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's just how entrenched industries usually behave when their position is challenged. Think about it from a banking perspective for a second. If a settlement technology can move value across borders faster and cheaper than the existing correspondent banking network, that's not just competition, that's a threat to an entire revenue stream built over decades. When you understand it that way, the idea that institutions might explore every available lever, including regulatory channels, doesn't sound far-fetched at all. It sounds like standard corporate self-preservation, the same kind we've seen in dozens of other industries facing technological disruption. Now let's talk about what this means for XRP specifically, because that's why you're here. Ripple has spent years working to gain legitimacy, building partnerships, fighting through legal battles, and positioning XRP as a serious tool for cross-border settlement. That progress has real value, and it hasn't gone unnoticed by traditional finance. The momentum Ripple has built recently, including renewed attention around potential public listing plans and continued ecosystem funding, only adds fuel to the idea that bigger players are watching closely and may want to respond. At the same time, Crusaders, we have to separate a credible warning from outright fear-mongering. There's no shortage of bold claims floating around crypto media right now, including predictions of XRP reaching prices that simply don't hold up once you look at the actual circulating supply and what that would imply for total market value. Big, exciting numbers get clicks, but they rarely reflect realistic math. Our job here isn't to hype you into a decision. It's to help you think clearly before you make one. This story is landing at a particularly sensitive moment for markets overall, and that context matters. Across the board, we're seeing pressure build in multiple asset classes at once, from real estate cooling off in certain regions to bond markets reacting to shifting rate expectations. Stock markets have stayed elevated, but a lot of analysts are pointing out that valuations look stretched compared to underlying fundamentals, which tends to make every asset class, crypto included, more reactive to bad news than it would be in calmer conditions. It's worth drawing a parallel to past periods when inflation pressures combined with global instability to create unusually volatile markets. We've seen similar dynamics before, where rising costs collided with geopolitical tension and caught a lot of average investors off guard because they hadn't lived through anything like it before. History doesn't repeat exactly, but it does rhyme often enough that it's worth paying attention to the warning signs instead of assuming this time is completely different. So what should you actually do with all of this, Crusaders? Our take has always been the same, and it's not flashy advice, but it works. Avoid putting a large amount of capital into any single asset all at once, especially during a period where uncertainty is this high. Dollar cost averaging over time smooths out the bumps and protects you from the worst-case scenario of buying right before a steep pullback. Patience during uncertain stretches tends to reward people far more than chasing headlines ever does. We also want to be clear that having a healthy amount of skepticism doesn't mean giving up on XRP as a long-term project. Plenty of disruptive technologies have faced resistance from the industries they were threatening, only to eventually become standard practice once the dust settled and the benefits became impossible to ignore. The path there is rarely a straight line, though, and pretending otherwise sets people up for disappointment when volatility hits, especially newer investors who haven't experienced a full market cycle yet. Drop a comment down below and let us know what you think about this story. Do you believe large institutions would actually use regulatory pressure as a competitive tool against a disruptive technology like XRP's Ledger? Or do you think this is overblown speculation dressed up as insider knowledge? We read through the comments regularly, and some of the sharpest takes on this channel come directly from this community, so don't hold back. Zooming out even further, this story is really a reminder that the relationship between crypto and traditional finance is still being actively negotiated, not settled. Every major regulatory development, every court ruling, every new framework proposal is part of that ongoing negotiation. XRP happens to be one of the more visible battlegrounds because of its direct ties to cross-border payments. But the underlying tension between innovation and entrenched financial power touches the entire crypto space, from Bitcoin to every altcoin you hold. Going forward, keep an eye on a few specific signals rather than just headlines alone. Watch for actual regulatory filings and statements from official bodies rather than anonymous claims. Watch how Ripple's leadership responds publicly, since silence or a strong rebuttal can tell you a lot. And watch overall market liquidity conditions, because thin, nervous markets tend to amplify any negative narrative far more than they would during a stable bull run, which means timing your moves carefully matters more than ever right now. That's the breakdown for today, Crusaders. Stay sharp, stay informed, and don't let any single headline make your decisions for you, whether it's pushing you toward panic or pulling you into hype. We'll keep tracking this story and bring you an update the moment there's anything concrete to report. If this video helped clear things up, smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll catch you in the next one. Coin Crusader, signing off.